Hello, everyone, and thanks Debbie and Henry for such a warm welcome. The small disclaimer, I don't have that money, and today I also won't be talking about securing a bag of money, but we are hiring and part of this money could be yours. Okay, so today I will be talking about building lightning fast storefronts with Nuxt, Storyblok, and Vue Storefront. And as I was introduced, my name is Filip Rakowski. I am a CTO and co-founder of Vue Storefront. And before we go and say, that e-commerce is not your thing, I just want you to stay with me for a minute longer, just a minute longer. Because even if you don't work in an e-commerce agency, you probably work a lot with e-commerce projects. And in essence, you may not even realize that. Because it doesn't necessarily have to be, a typical e-commerce store if you are selling on the internet. It's basically e-commerce, right? And it can be a real good or a digital good. It doesn't really matter what you're selling. And if you look at the Nike store, it is pretty obvious that you're looking at the e-commerce store. But to be honest, every page that sells something is also an e-commerce store. For example, do you know Vue School? Of course, you know Vue School. They sell online courses on the internet, so it is also e-commerce. And now that I hopefully got your interest on that topic, I want to share with you some of the things I have learned in the last 7 years of doing e-commerce. And I really hope that this knowledge will help you to make better decisions in the future and that you will learn something insightful. So today we'll be talking about headless commerce. By the way, there is a demo in the end, so bear with me. So, in short words, in headless commerce, you're basically decoupling your front end, which is head, from the rest of your application logic, hence the name headless. And for us front-end developers, it is pretty obvious that we write in Vue, we write in React, or whatever you want to write, and consume APIs. But for e-commerce, well, e-commerce is super complex, and right now it is just transitioning from this huge monolithic platforms that were doing everything and were written in PHP or Java just now. And headless is taking this e-commerce space by storm, really. And I remember when we were pitching Vue Storefront 3 years ago, it was all about explaining the benefits of headless commerce itself, not Vue Storefront, because the niche was so small that explaining the benefits of our product made no sense because there were only a few competitors on the market, and most likely our customers were not even aware of those competitors. And pitching our product was harder because we had to convince that client that there's a new emerging standard, and what they have now will cause them a lot of troubles in 2 or 3 years. While on the other hand, investing in headless commerce now will put them ahead of the competitors and speed up the digital transformation of their company. And to be honest, those who believed us had much, much easier survival in the COVID times. And what we see here is so-called technology adoption lifecycle. Actually, it's a great thing to know about, especially when you're building products, because it really helps you to understand who are actually your customers at different stages of the product evolution. And at that time, we're able to sell Vue Storefront only to visionaries, believing that headless is the future, and that is a very small group. Right now, the concept proven itself enough to become something appealing for even the biggest enterprises on the market, which are usually very late to the party when it comes to adopting new technology. And ironically, these are the types of the companies that could benefit from headless commerce the most. So headless commerce is without a doubt becoming the standard in the e-commerce space, but it doesn't mean you should be using that. You should actually never make strategic decisions about your technological choices just because everyone else uses it, or it is a new shiny standard, it is a trend. So let me explain what headless e-commerce is and why it is actually awesome. And before that, let's explore the opposite approach to understand its limitations and why we need something new. So for most of the time, when you wanted to build an e-commerce store, the only impactful technology choice you had to make was actually choosing your e-commerce platform, like Shopify, WooCommerce, Magento, BigCommerce. And this platform, it was providing with everything you need to build your store. It was catalog, product information management, inventory, pricing, taxation, customer management, discounts, checkout, content, cart calculation, orders, and on and on and on. It was providing you with everything. And it was great because it was very fast to make a new project, and there was only one important decision to make. But you know what? Simple choices rarely, very rarely scale well. And that was a problem of traditional monolithic e-commerce. Imagine the following situation. Right now, you are using WooCommerce store and WordPress serves you as CMS, and you're pretty happy with that. But your business is evolving. Now you have a team of managers, marketing managers, working on your content, and you need something that allows them to collaborate easier, like Storyblok, for example. And WordPress is limiting you right now, and you can't really do anything about that because it's all glued, it's all together. You can't just detach your CMS. And because you're using monolithic platform, you just need to live with your choices. Over time, when your business grows, you probably need more specialized tools in different areas like discounts, promotions, loyalty features, and eventually you are ending up in a situation where you have to make a tough choice and rewrite everything from scratch because the platform is slowing you down so much that your team is no longer productive, and it is really impacting your business. Another problem that arises with monolithic platforms is their operational scalability. Let's call it like this. Which actually means that the code base is growing every day because there is only one code base. And you know how it is. Onboarding new developers used to take a day. Now it takes 3 months and they are no longer productive. And no one really knows everything about the system because it is just too complex. Releases are becoming super slow. The development is no longer agile. Every release is blocking your whole operations. And at some point, again, you have to do a tough decision and start from scratch because the technical debt grows so much that introducing any change is so risky and so time consuming that it's just not worth it. This is exactly where headless commerce can help you. So in opposite to monoliths, headless commerce were a lot of hard words. So in opposite to monoliths, headless commerce is embracing a service-oriented approach. Where instead of using a single vendor for everything, we are actually using different vendors, different services specialized in their own domains. So we can still use WooCommerce for e-commerce functionality, but then we use Storyblok for a CMS, Algolia for the search, Talon for cards and discounts, etc., etc. So we're actually using a bunch of specialized small vendors that are focusing only on one thing. And when some of them are not suitable for us, we're just replacing them. And all those technologies, they talk with the front end through their APIs. And what benefits exactly we get about utilizing this headless approach? First thing that we are getting is agility. So by developing front end and the back end separately, you can actually be much more efficient because the teams, they could work in parallel, your front end and back end team. They don't need to wait for each other. And at the same time, changes in the front end, they will never affect the backend part of your system. So it's much less likely that you will break something accidentally. It's also much easier to manage smaller pieces. It's also much easier for developers to understand the part of the code they are working on and just focus on that and focus on their expertise. Right now, when you have decoupled front end and backend, front end developers, so most likely you, they can focus on delivering the best front-end experiences, optimizing that, etc. They don't need to cooperate and don't even need to communicate with the backend developers anymore. They're just sending them Jira tickets. Another thing is scalability and future-proofness. In monolithic systems, complexity increases with each customization for which the system is not designed. Let's call it like working against the framework. And in service-oriented architecture, complexity does not increase because you're resilient to change by design. You work on very small granular pieces independently. Decoupling your front end also allows you to customize the layout to any degree. In platforms like Magento, BigCommerce, actually all of them, you have some templating system that you usually have adjusted. So when your design team is working on the project first, they are checking, okay, so what are the limitations on this platform? Okay, so now we have to adjust. And in headless commerce, you don't have limitations. You're just building Vue.js application. And as we all know, you can be as creative as you want with that. Also, you can very easily test new touch points and vendors without making changes in your whole platform. So if you want to test a new CMS, add kiosk as new front end, you don't have to make changes in the whole application. It's all great, and I know what you're thinking. The benefits are super cool, but I don't want to replace my whole stack and make so many decisions about the new vendors. Just starting with that. And the good news is that you don't really have to, because the only thing that you have to do to embrace the headless commerce is basically decoupling your frontend and make it talk with your e-commerce platform through API. So that's the first step that will really give you enough flexibility to embrace this headless commerce fully. If you decouple the frontend, you can slowly replace functionalities of your monolithic platform with other vendors. Let's bring the situation that we have discussed. So we are no longer happy with our CMS. No problem. We are just using another one through API. Our frontend is talking to the backend only through an API, so it's not a problem at all. You're just not using CMS API, we're using Storyblok. Also, decoupling your frontend, it really gives you a lot of new opportunities, but unfortunately, it also introduces a lot of new challenges. And many of them really go far, far beyond the frontend itself. For example, you have so many data sources, you have to orchestrate them somehow and deliver this as a single API to the frontend. You have to work on the workflows. You have to work on the design part and making sure that design part is matching the code part, etc., etc. And this is exactly where Vue Storefront can help. So what we are providing is basically an ecosystem of free and open source tools that are addressing all of those problems, and they really play well together. But the best thing about the Storefront ecosystem is that you really don't have to use everything we provide you. So, we know that there is no tool that could actually satisfy everyone, like a Swiss knife. Just like with headless commerce, you can pick the tools from our ecosystem that support your goals and use only them, and use other providers, other things that match your expectations better. So, what exactly we provide? One of the problems that headless commerce is introducing is so-called data orchestration. So if you're working with 10 different vendors, for every page, you will have to make maybe 10 different requests for different resources to different domains, whom you have to make separate handshakes. Then you have to glue this data together on the front end somehow. This is definitely not optimal and not pleasing to work with. And to solve that problem, people use API gateways that orchestrate different data sources from the front end, orchestrate different data sources from the back end. And then on the front end, you are calling only the gateway. So you're not calling directly the services. And the gateway calls these different data sources, glues the responses together, and returns them as a single request. So in the single request, you could have a data from e-commerce, CMS, and whatever else you want. And it's not only great for performance, but it's also abstracts your vendors behind the gateway. So it's much easier to replace them in the future. Another challenge is building delightful UIs and actually also making it optimal. So building design systems and making component libraries based on that. You have to create a very good design system first. That's like 1/3 of your success. Then you have to make your developers work with designers on component library. And this collaboration part, it's super tricky from my experience. Then you have to take care of other things like accessibility, performance. Perhaps you want to make this library work without JavaScript in server-side rendering. So there is a lot of groundwork that actually our second product, Storefront UI, is taking away from you. So it is a ready-to-use component library. It's built on Vue.js and have design system in Figma files. So you can just pick the Figma files, customize them as much as you want, and then easily apply those changes on ready-to-use components. Last but not least part is the front-end boilerplate itself. And essentially what it is, well, a fully working e-commerce that is already connected to your e-commerce platform. So it is a production-ready shop. It is ready to customize. You don't need to waste hundreds of hours on repetitive groundwork. Instead, you can just use this boilerplate and customize it by building only the features that are specific to your business. You don't have to build cart from scratch, you don't have to build product page from scratch, etc., etc. All code is exposed in the boilerplate, so there are absolutely no limitations customizing it. It is based on Nuxt.js 2, but once the free will be ready, we'll migrate to free. Parts of it are written in TypeScript, tests are running on Cypress, so you must admit it's a pretty sweet stack. We also have a bunch of other libraries that are focused on small cases, and we keep adding more. So now let me show you how easy actually it is to use Vue Storefront with your current monolithic e-commerce platform. And really setting everything up takes like less than 5 minutes. So first you have to use our CLI to generate the project. Pick your e-commerce platform from the list, and the CLI will generate a boilerplate project for you. And the only thing you have to do is basically install the dependencies, change credentials, point those credentials into your e-commerce platform, and voila, you have a working headless storefront in 5 minutes. Now let's see what is there. That part was still a presentation, but last minute I decided to make it a demo. So watch me failing. Okay, so far so good. So what we are getting out of the box is basically a fully working storefront based on Storefront UI. So we have all the category pages, we have product, we can add it to the cart, we can go to checkout, we can fill the checkout, etc., etc. And oh, where is the code? Okay, and from the code perspective, this is like a typical ordinary Nuxt.js project. So we have all the components, we have all the pages, and as I said, everything is exposed to you. So the whole code of the UI, the business logic is exposed to you. The business logic related to e-commerce integration is taken from our packages using composables. Composables, you know what are composables? They are Vue-free functions based on composition API. And in Vue Storefront, you just have different composables for different e-commerce features. So use cart is for managing the cart. Use facet is for faceting, which is basically filtering. Use wishlist, you know. And the whole store is just built using this. You also have everything ready for the cache control. You also have internationalization in place. So we basically have everything you could expect from a well-optimized web application. It's a fully working e-commerce. And yeah, this is great on its own, but you can also add a little bit steroids on that. I don't have time today for live coding, so I will just show you the end result. So on top of such e-commerce, it's great to add a headless CMS like Storyblok. What we see here is basically a default Vue Storefront store connected to Storyblok. And the nice thing about the CMSs these days is that could really act as a data layer, at least from the visual perspective for your marketing team. So, you know, we have all the components, we can reorganize them, can change their content. Okay, I think it was somewhere here, yeah. But another thing is that for most CMSs, you also have connections to your e-commerce platform. So you can basically check the product slider, you can click here, and you can browse the real products for the e-commerce platform and pick them. So this is pretty neat. And adding this headless CMS on top of your website makes it super easy to manage. So basically you can use Vue Storefront to start from scratch, create the most optimized storefront that you can make. There are really no limitations on how you will create that and how you will customize that. And then on top of that, you can add a headless CMS and manage the whole storefront just from this. So you must admit it is pretty cool. And that was actually everything I had for today. So I really hope you learned something interesting. I really hope I made you want to try Vue Storefront, but at least read a little bit more about headless commerce. And thank you.
Well, the bag man. I'm just playing. I understand that, you've had a very sort of successful endeavor. So I was sort of playing off that. But first of all, can we get some claps for Philip? Some emoji love, whatever it is that you want to share for a great presentation. Yeah, I see some flames. I see some claps. That's awesome. That being said, I know we're supposed to go into a break right now. Let me just double check the schedule. Yeah, I think we are. And you're also being sort of ushered over for a session. Oh boy, here we go. I mean, let me make some time here.
What happened?
I mean,
Philip!
Life happened.
I was out trying to find people so that, like you said, you're hiring and I was out looking. I was interviewing for you.
Oh, she's good.
Yeah. There's a load of people. I've got them all ready for you.
Apparently, there's some people in the hallways.
Expect me to pay you.
But no, it's very cool. I just want to know, you're giving all your stuff away for free. It's like, Vue Storefront. It's open source. It's free. I mean, how are you trying to make money there?
That's the beauty of it, really. I mean, we wouldn't be there without our community. It is actually the single thing that let us grow so much. And at the same time, we have a software that is being validated by so many people. No one can get ahead of us. Everyone are bringing their own use cases. Everyone are correcting this. You really open source is amazing. And I really like the current trend that, open source companies, they're getting to be well funded. We saw that with Nuxt, we saw that with Vue Storefront, but I'm sure you all see that everywhere. Yeah. This is great.
And it's amazing to see you guys grow from 3 people, right? And just to grow to where you've got to now. And actually, I've seen your company event. No, you brought them all to, what was it, Portugal or somewhere?
I had no idea.
Where you took them off on holiday and you had your team meetings. I was watching. That was cool.
Yeah, but there are things like this. For example,
that's
some
why you should work
time
there.
ago,
You get free holidays.
Yeah, I discovered our community in Thailand, and there was a meetup. The people were taking pictures, and there was 30 people in there. And it turns out we have a very active community in there.
That's awesome.
Beauty of open.
That's awesome. I mean, it's good to see sort of meetups and community, like you said, sort of come back and reassemble and try to sort of relive what we had done previously, and that we're going to do very soon, I hope. But I certainly, and I'm sure everyone in the chat and everyone in the room want to thank you for your time. And what time is it with you right now?
9 p.m.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Normal time.
Okay, we can keep.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, and thanks so much for the invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're going to do, I believe you're going to head over to the session right now. So everyone in the chat, everyone attending, if you have some additional questions for Philip, you want to dig into the details.
Or you want a job.
Or you want a job. I mean, that's part of the details. You want to, also secure the bag.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Because he's not keeping the money for himself. He's giving it to everyone else.
Apparently,
right?
So Elon Musk.
And he bought a new chair. See that chair in the background? That's his new chair. It just arrived.
Oh, okay. That's what happened. So thank you very much. You're off to the sessions right now. So merci bien.